Thank you all for joining this panel. So let's do a little bit of an overview. Introduce yourself, your role, your company, and what you do. We'll start with Joe.
Absolutely. My name is Joe Blanchard. I'm the CSO over at Hashgraph Hedera, operating in L1. And yeah.
Hey everybody, Sean Spaniel. I'm at the SWE Foundation where I lead the cybersecurity program.
Hi everyone, my name is Brittany Kaiser. I'm the CEO of AlphaTon Capital, NASDAQ Aton. We're the largest investor in the Telegram ecosystem and one of the largest holders of Ton. I've spent a lot of my career helping co-write and pass most of the digital asset legislation in the US.
Hello everyone, Ethan Johnson. I do fractional Chief Information Security Officer Consulting.
Well, I would love to start off with a pretty basic question. Well, what's different in 2025? What are some of the challenges that you folks are noticing? And what is your basic assessment of the threat landscape today versus prior years? And
I'm happy to jump in.
Ladies first, yeah.
Which is that now that we're seeing the rise of AI, cyber attacks, phishing attempts are becoming incredibly sophisticated. It is even shocking to me where I do digital literacy education for Fortune 500 boards. I do cabinet briefings for governments on these topics, and even I am almost clicking on some of these things these days, especially those fake DocuSigns that ask me to claim my shares or claim my tokens. But it's getting so incredibly sophisticated, and because for the past decade I have worked specifically on data security and digital asset security and social media platforms, as an investor in the Telegram ecosystem, I specifically see that one of the scariest things on many social media platforms is the sophistication of targeting and deep fakes and being able to actually know enough about you data-wise to show you something that is very likely to be quite similar to something you are meant to receive. And therefore, you have to be very digitally literate, incredibly aware, and have incredible operational security, something that you should constantly be updating on a month-to-month basis and looking at what are the new attack vectors, what are the ways that you can protect yourself, how often are you updating your passwords and your 2 and 3 factors. You really just have to be a lot more sophisticated. And on traditional social media, the targeting is incredibly bad, but something I'll dig into a little bit more is that specifically in the Telegram ecosystem, as we're supposed to touch on kind of collective defense. People are getting better and better at creating new products that specifically help protect their community, like anti-phishing bots and bots that are specifically made to find malicious links. And so I find that strong communities in the digital asset ecosystem need to help protect each other on education and awareness, and also creating and proliferating new products that help protect people around them.
I totally agree with all of that. I think one thing I would add is the concept of AI really enables more scalability and deploying more complex scam content, right, and infrastructure that looks more real than some of the previous campaigns have.
I'll just go and add on to that too. It's like the AI is sexy for a lot of reasons, but I guess the one that kind of appeals to me is obviously when we work in security, we have a lot of tools out there that already at some level have AI or agentic or whatever bits, but the signal to noise ratio that it enables to differs. It makes any single individual or contributor just that more effective. And we've already seen it in just the past 6 months to the last year in how we use AI with current existing tools and methods. Because I think we'll talk about it in a bit, but obviously when you're staffing and resources for any team and you're trying to stay lean and have one guy do the work of 4, AI and how we enable that is really the key.
Ethan?
One of the ways I think of this, and yeah, I agree with all that, the threat's just going up. And is the security actually proportional to that? Is that actually keeping up? And it's one of the biggest problems we're seeing, that you're going to see pockets of where folks are doing great things and pushing really hard and have all kinds of funds to throw at security programs, and then there's lots of crypto that's not doing that. And so it's really just figuring out how do we get the entire thing to move forward proportionally to this, because otherwise you're going to keep seeing sort of the little guy getting picked off.
Yeah, all right, so let's tee off from that. I was at an event recently hosted by NordVPN, and it wasn't crypto or blockchain related, but they talked about how the basic security assessment at some of these big Fortune 500 companies, AT&T, Salesforce, is basically poor. So I would love to know, and I'll start with Ethan, because it kind of branches off from what you just said. What can be done to improve security? What can folks do to improve the quality?
I mean, you brought up the telecoms. I mean, they were founded and started with availability, not security or privacy. That's going back 100 years ago. Those things were not designed to be private.
It was AT&T today. They had a
And are they doing it now? Of course, they're going to push on it, but they're again like the last conversation. It's about money. What are folks willing to pay for, and what are folks going to be unwilling to pay for if they don't do a good enough job? And really, that's that motivator that pushes on it. And then for us, there's just a big push of how do we convince them, trick them, whatever it is, to actually invest properly in this stuff and actually be proportional, actually be comprehensive. Lots of other words I could use like that, but it's really how do you make this thing go forward? Some of that really does fall on us to make that magic happen also. Folks that don't understand cybersecurity aren't going to be the ones that are going to decide I want to just invest more in it blindly.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that you actually brought up AT&T specifically. I was on a panel this morning with Michael Turpin, who lost a lot of money in a SIM swap attack because someone went in and paid off someone from AT&T to take his phone number. And this has been a constant data security issue at AT&T and other big telcos for a long time, that you can impersonate someone and actually take someone's phone number because you don't actually own your phone number. That's not an asset that technically belongs to you. And so Telegram actually solved that quite a few years ago by allowing you to own your phone number as an on-chain asset. So you own your phone number as an NFT, and it is actually yours. You possess it. So no one can walk into AT&T and say, "Hey, that's my phone number." Show them a fake ID and actually steal things off your phone based on now having access to your phone number. So there are very interesting on-chain ways to solve some of these normal Web 2 data security problems that are becoming more and more creative, and I think it's mostly people in our digital asset ecosystem that are solving them.
Wait, how expensive is it to tokenize your cell phone or to get your cell phone on chain?
You can buy an on-chain cell phone, an on-chain number that is a private number specifically for the use in Telegram.
But
so it's not about taking your current number and bringing it on-chain, which is a very good idea, of course. But they specifically have created private phone numbers that are not linked to any of your PII. So your personally identifiable information is not linked to this, just your Telegram handle that owns it. And you also own your Telegram handle on-chain. So you own your entire digital identity not linked to PII if you put both of those in one wallet.
See, I'm bummed. People think that I'm the CEO of SoFi. So I get his phone calls. Maybe that would have
Congratulations, by the way.
No, it's not fun. I get a lot of angry phone calls. Sorry, I broke it. If you have anything to add, Sean.
Adding on to what Ethan said, there comes the concept of resource availability, right? And when you look at centralized banks or other government entities, there's regulations, there's requirements. The teams there have to build in security at the core. We're in crypto, right? I work at a foundation. We can encourage teams that build on our chain to build securely and to use the services that we offer them or the capabilities that we offer them from the foundation perspective. But we can't force them to get more audits or to do threat detection and contract pausing, right, with some of the vendors that we fund. And so I think from a maturity perspective, that's probably the next step when we look at what the L1s and L2s are doing in terms of being able to encourage and influence the different protocol teams to deploy and utilize some of the security capabilities.
It's a good lead-in. In security, there's a lot of things we do in the testing world, and a very significant part has always frustrated me. And coming from now crypto, which obviously we have the reputation of being the wild, wild west, and security often comes first over availability. But there's a lot of security we do that's quite literally theater. And this is TradFi and fintech. No, I'm not picking on anyone here. There's a lot of things we do to check the boxes, but provide just minimal or bare basic value. Or focusing on that value, I think, is the real core, and that's where the spend comes. Or that's how you better justify it beyond checking the boxes, which at some level we have to do. But moving from that wild, wild west mindset, I think really comes with with actual losses, which we've obviously been seeing for quite a while now. It's not just, numbers on a screen. I think most of us have friends or associates that at some level, at some point, they've been affected. And as we grow, they're going to see more of that. And so as we see more regulation and compliance and liability, I like to hope that we as security, the things we're not already doing, will continue to chase those things, because it's just going to get more painful as we go, as we grow. I mean, I think we're still in our infancy as a crypto community. I mean, obviously we've had some broad topics today already, just expressing that entirely. So I think as we grow, as we move forward, I guess hopefully we see that maturity and we see the willpower and the willingness behind the rest of us in the community to continue to grow that. I'm not sure I agree that we need someone to step in and tell us exactly what we should do by law. That kind of goes against a little bit our ethos, but I'm not saying it's not needed.
I didn't say we should, but it would help.
It does help a little bit just to have basic guidance. And more, I would say it's better to do some standard setting. I do a lot of government training around the world in cybersecurity and digital asset definitions and data protection. And I think one of the greatest examples has been in Sweden, where they were the first country to have a cybersecurity certificate issued by the government. And the first 3 big companies that actually went through the audit process to get this government cybersecurity certificate, all of a sudden, because they had the government stamp of approval and were constantly audited in order to keep their certificate, all of these small vendors that were non-compliant and constantly getting hacked and constantly having data breaches stopped getting all of this business just because they had a good marketing or advertising scheme. And instead, the trustworthy companies started to grow faster, and companies were then actually trusting the right organizations with their data security issues. So I think that was an incredibly positive way forward. Instead of saying, here's the law, here's the way you need to abide by it. Okay, well, here's a standard. If you would like to go through the certificate process and get certified, then you can. And guess what? It's going to be great for your business.
Joe, when we spoke the other day, I thought it was interesting. You painted a visual of sometimes the perception is to be good with security is like you're wearing a tinfoil hat on steroids. I think that was you said.
I may have said something to that effect. Yes.
Well, that makes it sound like it's simple, but it's very complicated. I would love to know, lift the curtain a little bit on the strategies. Like you're faced with an incident, or there's something where security is off. What do you do? What are some of the strategies? What can people take away and learn?
I find a great deal that it's preparation. There's a phrase in life, you can't affect or change the things that happen to you, but obviously you can change how you react to those things. And so I've always found that to be true. And so when you're dealing with incident response or even product security and working on new things coming out, being prepared and having a mindset and having those steps and checklists, as boring as that sounds, to me that's just good hygiene. And so when you're working with other leaders amongst your teams, and you're putting a process through, be able to identify those and work through it, especially on the incident response side. Again, cliche, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And when it comes to incident response, it's a muscle. The more you flex it, the more you practice, the better you get at it. So when those things do occur, instead of it taking down your business or worrying about resilience or these other elements, you can respond appropriately. Not everything is a critical. Some things are just slows and mediums, and you deal with those and move on. But I think preparedness, and again, that resiliency is really just key to everything on the security space, regardless of whether it's product security or, again, it's the incident side.
Yeah, and Brittany spoke about digital literacy. That plays a big role. Is there a way that companies can become more digitally literate?
Yeah, in general, every company is only as strong as its weakest employee that doesn't understand what a phishing link looks like. So it's essential that as a part of an HR and hiring and training process to bring someone into your internal digital architecture, that all of these people are trained and that they go through a certification process to understand how to spot these things and to have true operational security. Right now, when you're having decentralized teams working all over the world, you need to make sure that the devices that they are using to access internal systems from their own house are probably not their personal devices, and that you are paying for incredible cybersecurity to be running on their devices. That unfortunately, not a lot of companies do, but it really is essential to making sure that your core architecture is safe from external threats and safe from new employees that may not be technically competent. And also, your hopefully your data architecture is very structured permissions-wise, and there are very few people who have core access. I've met with so many people around the world that work for top companies, and like new interns will have like core access to their database systems, which is just insane and so dangerous. And so the digital literacy training for individuals joining companies is essential, but also I think this is a generational issue where digital literacy education is only just starting to be implemented into public school curriculums. We all grew up with computer classes that taught us how to use technology, but not how technology functions. We're taught, here's how you type, here's how you use an email, but not if your email is open while you type in a search browser, that all of that data you enter into the search browser will be connected to your personally identifiable information forever and be on millions of databases around the world, constantly coloring your digital experience. Maybe we would have used technology a bit differently, but you don't teach kids that. So I worked with the G20 to help implement the first digital literacy architecture that was available to implement into public school curriculums, and they only just started doing that in 2020. Saudi Arabia was actually the first country to decide to sign on and do it. And now there's been quite a few other countries around the world that have decided to adopt that, so that from the moment children are actually learning how to use technology, they learn how it functions, and digital literacy and cybersecurity and preventive tactics, as opposed to growing up literally having no idea the risks that you're putting yourself through every day.
Well, let's branch off from that. I mean, you mentioned those other countries. What about the U.S.? Would you folks say that we're behind, or are we ahead of the curve? Let's start with Ethan and or Sean. Let's haven't heard from you folks, guys.
Sure, talking about cybersecurity literacy.
Yeah. Or just I know we can disagree on regulation, but it seems like Brittany mentioned those good case studies.
This is a fun one. So there is a side of this that, the more folks learn and understand, the more they can be at least somewhat empowered to stop things from going wrong or spot things that are off. At the same time, the actual literacy, when you think out there, that broadly about, the populace, the entire spectrum of folks using technology, from little kids to folks that are proficient to folks that are elderly, that sort of thing. It's actually pretty bad in terms of what they actually know or could spot, or or how much they're staying ahead of this stuff. If you think about it, you've got millions and millions of people using computers that they're not us, and they're not like anybody in the room here. That to them it's like, why is it popping up with this thing? Why do I have to do this?
We're not
stuff?
as good as you think we are, buddy.
Yeah, and maybe me early in the morning is doing that too. But that's part of the challenge there. One of the pieces that actually goes into it is sort of the secure by design topic and concept, that it's how much are we making this easier? How much are we putting the burden on the users of this stuff to actually figure it out? And it's, solving that is really hard, but it's also, that's the thing we all have to strive for a lot to make that a better, safer place for those kinds of folks.
And Sean, does AI make things easier or more complicated? What do you think?
Well, both. I think Brittany is the expert here in terms of what the different countries are, in terms of where they are up to speed on their literacy from a privacy perspective. I think the big challenge is, regardless of what country you're in, as kids grow up, right, they use different systems, and those systems are all different from what I used, or maybe what Ethan or Joe used, and we can't expect them to be experts on how those work and what kind of data they are enabling access to, and how that data is stored. And nobody reads the EULAs, right? We all know that. And so I think there's just challenges all around. And I'm glad you're here, Brittany, to help us figure it out.
Yeah, actually, in one of my lawsuits against Facebook, at the FTC, we basically reached a decision saying that the terms and conditions, because of the way they're written and the fact that less than 1% of people actually read them, that it's not true legal informed consent. And so that data is actually truly being taken without legal consent. And so that the FTC is now kind of enforcing. Obviously, we won $5 billion from Facebook, so the FTC was funded based off of that principle, and therefore they're now super into it. And so,
worth every penny.
One of the most important things that I think a lot of big companies has implemented is that you make, as you said, security by design, where people truly understand what they're opting into and can truly opt out when they're presented with real information. So, the first grade reading level bullet points of this is what this does, and you can toggle on and off what you're accepting, not 45 pages of legalese. So that way people can actually understand what they're opening when they're opening an app, when they're downloading a wallet, when their data, sensitive PII or digital assets are involved. This is even more important, and so we want to make sure it's a lot more. You are protected by the product itself, and if you want to opt out to certain things or opt into additional things, great, but the base level of what you're going to enter into is safe and protects your data and gives you a higher level of security than what traditional Web 2 platforms have done.
I would love to switch topics to hiring and whether or not it's truly difficult to deepen the bench at each of your companies. What's it like trying to headhunt and find the talent needed to make sure that security is top notch?
It's expensive. Do you know what recruiters cost these days? So right now it is difficult. Obviously, everyone's trying to stay lean. Obviously, we leverage AI, because it'll do more work and we can teach it context. But at the end of the day, we still need some bodies. And it has been difficult. I think I used the term when we talked before about it, in our case, like when you're hiring for security in crypto, it's trying to find a unicorn among unicorns. So it's exceptionally difficult. And so periodically you find those, and that's great, and you pay for them. But the more we've turned, aside from AI, is try to organically grow those individuals as well. But that doesn't happen overnight. That's a months, multi-year adventure. Finding those people, and a lot of it's you find attitude and you train towards it, but it's difficult for sure.
I think somewhere like SWE, where we're a layer one and we're built on a new language, right, the Move language, it's a little bit harder to find people that understand the contracts, the smart contracts, the language, the way that we work, our object-oriented model, compared to somewhere like ETH, where there's dozens, hundreds of layer twos. Or Solidity, where there's so many Solidity developers out there. So finding the engineering talent to understand here are the challenges and here's how we're going to identify the threats and be proactive about defending against them. We also have the challenge with, from an operational perspective, coordinating with the ecosystem teams and talking to the different protocols and making sure that we're explaining things to those teams who don't have security, don't think about security, and I agree with your assessment. Unicorn is how we think about the security talent in blockchain ecosystems.
A unicorn among unicorns. Are like two horns or like one horn on top of another?
It can be as pretty as you want, as long as they're looking for a job.
I would love to know. It's funny when you look at this screen. You said they force us to look at our headshots on this screen. And Joe said you looked more hopeful in yours.
I was going to say, I can't remember how many years ago that was, but yeah, I think I looked a little bit younger and more hopeful.
Me too. So I would love to know, it's already November, folks, and I would love to know, what does 2026 look like? If we can sort of pretend we have a crystal ball, and are we hopeful? And are we excited about things, or better yet, does anything keep you up at night about this industry that you guys have chosen? And we'll start with Ethan.
Oh, sure. The keep me up at night. I mean,
or what do you feel positive about, or what do you feel negative? Either one.
Sure. Positive about. I mean, there's there's a current geopolitical climate that's continuing to just push this stuff forward, which is not a bad thing for all of us because it's making this industry move at a lot faster pace instead of getting, somewhat hindered in the background or maybe not so much in the background. And then keeping me up at night, I mean, it's what's going to be the next big thing. It's kind of that, if you've been following this space for years, like most of us here have, it's, any day you wake up, it could be, $1 billion suddenly got lost.
Yeah.
And, lots of times it's not near that size, but it's like you almost can't go a month without having some kind of material breach, break, something going wrong, something getting stolen. Not that all of them are exactly, or not that everyone is different in every way, but a lot of times there is some different, interesting nuance to it. And so it's keeping me up at night, but it's also just keeping me sort of entertained and interested.
Yeah. Well, when you think about the next big thing, I mean, I think the memory of like something like FTX is still vivid in our minds, and that was the next big thing, and there was just such a massive collapse. Brittany, anything worrying you? What stresses you out?
Oh, I'm going to start with the positives first, which is that in 2026, it will be the first full year where it is supported by the government to build in the digital asset industry in America. So that is very exciting to me. If you think just at the beginning of this year, we still had no idea what was going to happen when the new administration came in. There were some promises made, and those promises have been kept, which is a huge sigh of relief to everybody in this industry who has PTSD from the past 15 years of us being persecuted by governments around the world, but especially our own for us Americans. So it's an amazing opportunity that we're all here at NASDAQ because loads of us have been able to take our crypto companies public. When I first started trying to do that 5 years ago, that was really difficult. And we managed to do it, but it was really, so special. And constantly never knowing if it was going to be okay when you woke up the next day. That's when I was really awake at night. But, I think what is scary is that the whole point of the digital asset industry has been to secure our digital assets, yet we have this massive AI race where some of the leaders of these AI companies believe that the only way for America to compete in the AI race is for us to obey zero laws and steal everyone's data. So can we move fast enough as a digital asset industry to help people secure their digital assets before these AI companies make it impossible to do so?
So I would say the scariest thing is also the most interesting, which is the most positive, is that we're trying to move fast. And with that speed comes all these great new products and use cases for people to actually have a reason, right, to come and operate on chain. It also means that there are going to be more vulnerabilities, more things deployed without formal audits or enough reviews or architectural discussions. The other item is we talked about AI earlier. It's going to continue to help scale scam and fraud campaigns. They're going to look more real. They're going to affect more users. So the speed and the use of AI keep me up at night.
Joe, bring us home.
Absolutely. I'm not going to talk about things that keep me up at night because that list can go on forever. But I would like to go on the hopeful side and I think today is a great example of that. I think everyone can feel over the last few months, especially the tempo shift. And I think we're actually having conversations, not just here, but like in other circles that I participate in, conversations that we probably would have been afraid to have a year, 2 years ago for sure. But when we can have those conversations, how do we secure the infrastructure? How do we work together collectively? How do we, as a community, bring these things together and get retail adoption? And how do we get it out to the everyday anyone? I think these things exist now in huge abundance, and we can talk tech all day. But I think there's an element of willpower that comes with all that as well. And we have a wall of willpower, I think, coming down from all different avenues and personalities. And so I think that gives me a great deal of hope because at the end of the day, we sit behind our desks and we're tech and we're watching people's backs. But when it's out there being spoken and we're building and continually moving forward, it adds a great deal of hope.
Well, I'm a factory of questions, but they're giving me the red light. That's our time. Thank you guys so much. This was fun.
everybody.